What's going on, people? We're gonna try something a little bit different today, and I know how you guys work. If this is a big whiff, I'm sure you'll let me know down below in the comment section. But we have a gauntlet coming up in 2 days. It is a Pauper Gauntlet, so I figured that I would make a couple of decks to either let you guys use or to use as inspiration if you're having difficulty coming up with a deck. If you're not aware, Pauper is a format where you can only use common cards, so common cards only. I put together 4 decks for you guys today. Forewarning, they are not necessarily the 2 main decks that you'll see. Actually, we don't know what the meta is. It's been like 4 expansions since we had a Pauper Gauntlet, but the previous ones, the best decks were like an East Empire Crafter deck. Shouts were pretty good, and like Prophecy Battlemage was pretty good. So there's one, the first deck we're going to talk about is probably the closest to a quote-unquote meta Pauper deck, and then we did couple other different things, and we're gonna see how this goes. So first things first, we made ourselves an Aggro Battlemage. It is somewhat prophecy heavy. I wouldn't quite call it a prophecy Battlemage, but it is prophecy heavy. And yeah, it's just it's an aggro deck. So we're rocking Nord Firebrands and Ornamented Swords. There's not a ton of great ways to buff the Firebrands, so there is an argument to cut this for something else. But I almost look at these as like mini removal spells that also can be extra damage, especially if you combine it with like Morgul Gatekeeper, or like I said, we are running Ornamented Sword. We also have Crowned Quartermaster. So while we are missing things like Orc Clan Captain, there are still ways to buff the Nord Firebrand. Crowned Quartermaster's in the deck as well. Great 1-drop. Gives you Steel Dagger. It's pretty amazing. Midnight Trespasser's in here because it's a potential 1 Magicka 3/3. And you're not going to get many 1 Magicka 3/3s. Additionally, we are running, I guess, a mini consume package, mostly just the aggro variant of it. So we're running Midnight Trespasser. We are running the Imbued Minotaur, a 3 Magicka 5/2 breakthrough. I would run it just for that in this deck. But we are running Euraxian Berserker as well to be a 3 Magicka 4/4. So at any point, Midnight Trespasser can be a 1 Magicka 4/4 with breakthrough, or Euraxian Berserker can be a 3 Magicka 5/5 with breakthrough. Yeah, that's why Imbued Minotaur is in the deck. We've got Altmer Flameslinger. Again, it's another one that pairs very nicely with Ornamented Sword or Prowl Smuggler. Any of those items. It's a 1/3 with ward, pings your opponent's face every single turn. So it should be able to trade pretty well, as just, like I said, it accepts buffs very well because of the ward, meaning your opponent will probably have to take 2 times to break it down. Especially in Pauper, where there's not a ton of removal and not a ton of silence. So you can kind of afford to buff something up like this. Circle Initiate's a good prophecy. Rewards you for breaking a rune. It's a good card. Greystone Ravager. It's a lot of attack on a cheap creature. Additionally, I feel slightly more confident playing this in a Pauper format where, yes, there's still Tiny Dragon and Skaven Pyromancer, I believe. But other than that, there's not a ton of pings that people are going to be playing, although you could see things like Sharpshooter Scout or whatever it is, the 1/1 prophecy that deals 1. But just this is a lot of stats for 2. We already talked about Ornamented Sword. Prowl Smuggler is one of those 2-drops that can kind of help this deck snowball quite a bit. Spread your Steel Daggers all around, deal a ton of damage. Storm Cloak Vanguard is just a way to charge for some instant damage. You can use it as removal. Then you get a 4 Magicka 5/5 left behind, which there's not that many bodies like that in Pauper, so being able to get a 5/5 is excellent. We're rocking Camlorn Hero for the face damage, as well as, again, it's an aggressively statted body. Discerning Thief is probably the one questionable inclusion in the deck, but I figured you'd be able to drop this on 3, and it has a good body for a 3-drop. And then the more you connect face, you can draw more and more cards. And yes, you have to discard a card, but as long as you're not top decking, you can always make sure that you have the best possible card in hand for next turn. And since in Pauper your card quality is obviously on average lower than a typical deck, Discerning Thief can really help you make sure you have the correct cards. We've got Morgul Gatekeeper again, Prophecy, Reach, it's good things. Lightning Bolt is in here as just 4 damage. Again, also another prophecy. It's the only true removal in the deck. Then we've got Mystic Dragon as a 4 Magicka 4/4. If you hit this off of prophecy, obviously it's bonkers. It probably could just win you a game. And then Savage Ogre's in the deck because a 5/5 body is not horrible. And honestly, giving +5/+0 I think is very underrated. I think this card is almost constructed playable. Not quite. It's definitely on the outside looking in, but it's better than you think. So I think it could be very good in a Pauper format. This deck, if it doesn't start snowballing, can obviously get shut down by like East Empire Crafter guard decks. But in general, this is a quote-unquote generic aggro deck. And some people really like that playstyle, so I wanted to at least provide one of those for you guys. Next up, we've got kind of a mid-range slash tempo-y assassin kind of thing, more or less, for lack of a better term. It's also running a full consume package, or as full of a consume package as you can run in Pauper. So we've got the Imbued Bosmer. It's a 1 magic, a 1/1 with lethal, which, while the body isn't great, it almost can act as a little, like, removal body. We've got Crocodile Brute to be the consumable draw some cards guy. And then we are also running the Imbued Breton. A 5 magic, a 4/4 ward, I think is going to be sneaky good in this format. So we're rocking this. And then as far as things that will consume creatures, we've got Illicit Butcher, which is another one of those cards that I think is very underrated. 4 magic, a 4/3 that shackles is really good. And if it consumes either one of these, it can become a 5/4 with either ward, which will be insane, or lethal, which will still be really good. And we've got the Midnight Trespasser as well. If this ever eats an Imbued Breton and becomes a 1 magic, a 4/4 ward, obviously that is just bonkers. So we've got that. We've got a decent amount of shackle, or as much shackle as we can, I guess, have. We've got Sanctuary Pet and the Illicit Butcher, just to slow our opponents down. We've got Moonface Soothe, which will help us heal for a little bit, as well as draw cards if you need it. Brotherhood Slayer is an excellent prophecy that also gets you contracts to get into some of your late game. There's not much late game. In Pauper, late game is like a 5-drop. But we'll work our way over there. We're also running Feldu and the Elytra Noble because we have some smaller bodies, and it can turn things like Thieves Guild Recruit into a threat, or like Crocodile Brute against a bigger body. And a 4/6 with lethal I think is just hard to deal with. So we feel okay about running the Noble. We've got Fighters Guild Recruit and Lurking Crocodile, some Prophecy 2-drops. Actually, this deck has an even higher Prophecy count than the other one. So I think this deck is somewhat positioned well to do battle with some other aggressive decks. It's got some tempo plays, a tiny bit of healing, and high Prophecy count. So as long as you're not in like a Prophecy aggro mirror, and in which case I think this probably even still has the advantage, as long as you properly identify that your opponent's playing Prophecy aggro. The only thing you're lacking here is guards, so it could be an issue, though. But you've got Thieves Guild Recruit for some draw. Manic Jack is just an incredible card. The fact that he's common actually kind of blew my mind. So being able to do like Manic Jack, and then any way you can give it keywords, either Feldu or Manic Mutation, I guess is the main ways this deck has. It's obviously very, very good. We've talked about most of these cards already. Mystic Dragon, again, is in here because the 4/4 for free is insane. The one, I guess, awkward inclusion is Cartel Bruiser. I just wanted something a little bit more late game oriented, and this is a card that, while it does get removed somewhat easily, there's not a ton of removal in Pauper, and this is the kind of card where even if it swings face once or twice, can snowball very easily, and it demands an answer. And then we are running 3 Empire Dreadmage as our quote-unquote late game. A 7 magic, a 7/5 body is not bad at all in this format. It survives Lightning Bolt, which will be your main thing that you have to worry about besides Sanctuary Raid and Javelin. So your main damage-based removal would be Crushing Blow or Channeled Storm or Lightning Bolt, and Dreadmage should survive all 3 of those in most situations. I guess the Channeled Storm has an opportunity. So this coming down as just a 7/5 is pretty solid, and then giving a creature -2/2, the conditional effect, can be a pretty huge swing. So this is kind of a tempo-y, consume, kind of mid-rangey, but still slightly aggressive assassin. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's all over the place, but it's doing a lot of different things. But I think the deck is interesting. It plays a lot of fun cards. A lot of cards that you don't always get to see getting shine, like Bruiser, Dreadmage, Imbued Breton, underrated cards like Illicit Butcher. I think there's a lot going on in this deck. Next up, we've got Neutral Spellsword, which is something that I wanted to try. This deck is also slightly more mid-rangey. We are running a lot of neutral cards, which hence the name. We've got Gearwork Spider, Assembled Sentry. We are running all of the Factotum as well. So you've got the Sentry, the Automaton, the Sanitizer, and the Assembled Conduit. Just because I wanted to get the neutral count up and these guys can kind of scale decently well as the game goes on. So I figured why not give it a shot. Marked Man is in here because it generates a neutral card, and it's a really good one-drop. We've got our Lurking Crocodile as a Prophecy. Ankle Snapper, just a good card, deals 1 damage to the face. Dark Guardian's in here just as a big guard. This deck kind of takes a little bit to set up as you want to draw into your 2 Fabricants or just get your Factotum going. So Dark Guardian as a roadblock is kind of solid. Dwarven Sphere kind of fills a similar role. It's going to shackle your opponent, slow them down a little bit. It's an okay body. It's not good at all, but it's okay. We've got Bonewalker in here as a Prophecy. It's also just another guard. Again, this one's in here as a speed bump, and it should speed bump just fine. Kaguti Fabricant, these are the cards that were in here trying to take advantage of all the neutral cards. This gets you 6/6 worth of stats on 2 bodies in 2 different lanes for 4. That's obviously very, very good. Camel, because the deck otherwise doesn't really have any draw. So running Merchant's Camel allows us to filter for the things we're looking for, and again, it leaves behind a neutral body. Gristlehide Dreg is an okay-ish body that should hopefully at least draw you 1 card before it dies, and that's the kind of thing it's here for. We've got Hulking Fabricant, because a 5 Magicka 8/8 in a format where there's not much hard removal is incredible. I don't know how well this deck overall will stack up, but the main reasons you're running it is for the 2 Fabricants. Bloodline Outcast is one of my favorite arena cards, so I figured I'd give it a try in this deck. 7 Magicka 7/7 with a ability to get drained, which isn't that hard to trigger. I think it's pretty solid. And then finally, we've got Clockwork Apostle. 7 Magicka 3/3, gives you a 4/4 buff, and it also turns something into neutral, which turns on our neutral synergies. I'm not super confident in this deck. If this deck could run something like Old Salties, it would be crazy. Or even just Dwarven Dynamo, but I want to see how strong the neutral package is without Dynamo and Salties. And then finally, the last deck we're going to talk about today, it is a mono yellow deck. This deck really wishes it could have either Mercenary Captain or Divine Fervor. This deck would probably be on borderline of constructed playable if it had either one of those, but I did my best to kind of just work around it. We've got 2 copies of Execute because it can get rid of those East Empire Crafters or other guards. Marked Man is a token staple. Rebel Warden is a kind of budget token card, so it fits right into this deck just fine, as well as Scouting Patrol again. Marked Man and Scouting Patrol are both token staples, so with our 1-drops, you're almost on a constructed level right there. We've got Cleric of Kind to give us a nice little prophecy, health buff. It's not going to matter all often, but it can matter for some trades. Priest of the 8 will help us draw some cards. It's a solid card overall as well. We got 2 copies of Shining Saint just to help facilitate any trades we may need to do, as well as get some stuff out of the shadow lane. Wily Kiva is just a really good vanilla body, and I think a vanilla body can do very well in this format. Golden Initiate is a bonkers card. 3 Magic at 3/3, hit it on a prophecy. It has Drain, helps you get back into the game. We're running Luminous Shards just because I feel like we probably are going to need some ways to kill some things, and if we're going to have tokens, we can easily buff this thing up. Kind of like an Execute on steroids. There's an argument to just not even run Execute if we're running Luminous Shards, and maybe I'll make a tweak last second, but again, these decks are just baselines. I didn't put a ton of work into them, and there's a chance that I may change them before the gauntlets actually start. We've got Renowned Instructor, if it sticks, and there's 11 actions in the deck, so we have a 20% rate to find one. Being able to generate any kind of extra recruits is just quality. Resolute Ally is one of the powerhouses of the deck. Getting your whole lane buffed is perfectly fine and constructed, so in this format, I think it'll be crazy. We've got Thalmor Justicar. Like I mentioned, we have 11 actions. This is a way to kind of continuously generate tokens anytime you play one of those actions. We've got Moonmoth Castellan. It extends your resources a little bit. It's a decent body. I think it's a not too bad card. Spawn Mother and Bollywog. Bollywog is it's just another card you can play to get on the board, and Spawn Mother is playing into all of the creatures that we'll be playing. I think there's also an argument that this could potentially be... I don't think the Siege Weapon is a common. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, it's a rare, so you couldn't run that anyway. So you're running this because you can't run the Siege Weapon. 3 copies of Javelin just to be good prophecies as well as removal. Again, I'm expecting to see some big guards, so between this, Luminous Shards, and Execute, I think we'll have enough ways to get by guards without having Silence. Clockwork Apostle for some reach, and then Legion Prefect is our much worse version of Mercenary Captain and Divine Fervor. We don't have much of a choice but to run this, but I think this deck could be pretty decent. It kind of has a lot of the same soul of regular mono yellow tokens. Obviously, losing out on 5th Legion Trainer, Divine Fervor, Mercenary Captain is huge, but I think there's still enough here that this deck has a decent power level overall. So those are the decks that I made. I'll probably be recording with at least 1 or 2 of these once the Gauntlet comes around. Let me know what you think of these types of videos if you guys want to see whenever there's a new Gauntlet, or maybe after new expansions when the Gauntlets come up. If you guys want to see these kinds of shorter theory crafting videos on what you could run in the Gauntlet, I obviously suggest everyone takes part in this Gauntlet. There's no reason that you can't build a deck of common cards, even if you're a brand new player. And hopefully one of these decks gave you some inspiration and hopefully have some success with it. But let me know what you think of the idea down below, and let me know what kind of decks you'll be playing in the Gauntlet as well. As always, thank you guys all very much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.